Hello, welcome to your calendar protocol tutorial. The goal of this tutorial is to help you have a clear understanding of how to map your calendars and also a clear understanding of how to unpack teaks that will be mapped out onto your calendar. So the resources that you're going to need as we navigate through the tutorial, you need all of the handouts that were given to you at the summer planning. The unpacked teaks, the blueprint, the scope and sequence document, and your calendar that your team worked on, as well as my example calendar. Also remember, as I go through this tutorial, I would love your feedback. Tell me what you like about the protocol for calendar building, what you wonder about it, and also a good next step. Remember, it's important that we share ideas. So part one of your planning. Remember, when you map out your calendar, you're basically giving direction to your team and to your classroom. It's telling you exactly where you want to go. So 2 documents that you're going to need in order to build this calendar. You're going to need your scope and sequence, and you're going to need the district calendar. The district calendar lets you know the district's holidays, also the testing days, basically all of your non-teaching days. And your scope and sequence lets you know all of the teaks that need to be taught during the unit. So what you would do is look at the district website and find the non-teaching days, and you would mark those off on your calendar. For example, we know that September the 2nd is Labor Day, so that will be marked off. Also mark off days that you're giving your own personal classroom test, so that you'll be able to know exactly how many teaching days you're going to have for the unit. So for example, let's say that after marking off my days, I realize I only have 45 days of actual teaching. Take a moment to reflect on that. Alright, next I want you to look at your scope and sequence. For the first unit, we are required to teach fiction, teach our students how to analyze fiction, as well as write fiction, also non-fiction. And excuse me, this is your first unit within the 9 weeks. Your second unit within the 9 weeks is poetry. You're going to teach students to analyze poetry as well as write poetry. So, our next step is to simply unpack all of these teaks. So, the way this looks is you first look at the teak. And remember, the state of Texas, I gave you a document that had all the teaks listed for your grade level. So, this is teak 2B. This is an ELA 2 teak. And it says, we will analyze archetypes in mythic, traditional, and classical literature. Now, analyze, as we all know, is at the higher levels of Bloom. So we wouldn't start our students right at analyze. We would figure out what do we need to teach before we get them to the point of analyzing. So we're going to teach them to understand archetypes, maybe even identify archetypes. We'll get them to explain archetypes, and finally analyze archetypes. So this could be done in one lesson. If it is done in one lesson, these are your sub-objectives. And this is your main objective. Or maybe your students need you to take it a little bit slower, and this is actually one day. And this is the second day. And this is the third day. It's just up to you and also the needs of your students. The other important thing to understand about unpacking is basically thinking about figure 19b. Figure 19b states, make complex inferences about the text, use textual evidence, and support our understanding. So this is basically an SAQ. All of the questions on our test for the 9 weeks in the EOC are double coded. This means that even though I'm teaching 2B, it's also going to assess figure 19b along with 2b. So even though I'm teaching them to analyze archetypes, they want students to be able to make inferences about archetypes and use textual support to support their understanding or provide evidence. So it's important, as I've shown you on the Unpack document, that you take them from the lowest level all the way up to writing an SAQ, which is their response to the text. And remember, I've done all this work for you for the first 9 weeks. The other thing you have to look at is the blueprint. So we have 1B, 1D, 2, 2A. These are all of the TEKS that are on our first 9 weeks test. And these are also the TEKS that students normally perform poorly on. So our district is going to test the students on these TEKS. So when you think about where to start, you may want to start with the blueprint. Another way of figuring out how to start is to use a cycle when teaching any text. The following is a cycle that I normally use when teaching the text. I first have my students do a first read where they focus in on vocabulary. So they're reading the text and identifying the words that they don't understand. After that, they will do a second read where they're analyzing the text. So I'm taking them back to the text, but this time to analyze or do a second read of the text. And then finally, I have them to respond to the text in writing so I can see what they actually understand about the text. In the last part of this, I'll have them revise their writing for grammar and convention errors. So here's an example of what that looks like. So my first day, I have them look at 1B. So what I'm going to have to do is teach context clues, model how to figure out context clues, or model how to figure out the meaning of words using context clues. And then I'll have my students do their first read of the text, and then they would identify the words they didn't understand, and then use context clues to figure out the meaning. On the second day, they've already read the text, but I'm going to teach plot. And I'm going to take them back to the second time to identify the plot, and then finally to analyze the plot. And then last, I'm going to have them go through and respond in writing to the text. And they're going to make inferences about the text and provide evidence to support their inferences that they've made about the text. And if you notice, I'm teaching 15C, which is SAQ, so they're writing, but they're also incorporating figure 19B. And then last, after I've done that, I may teach them restrictive and non-restrictive clauses, and I would use that language because that's the language of the test, and I would teach them how to identify those in their writing, or in someone else's writing, how to understand the difference between the two, and then I will have them go back to the SAQ that they've written and basically edit their own writing for restrictive and non-restrictive clauses. So if you have my calendar, this is exactly the process I've gone through for each text that I've read. So remember, you can do it this way, or you can have your own style when it comes to building your lessons. So next, how do we chunk the lessons? And this is important for when you think about your calendar. So since these three pertain to reading, I may chunk these three together and have one group work on this set of lessons. And these pertain to writing, so I may have group 2 work on these groups. Or I may say, hey, I want day 3, 4 to be group 2, And group 1 just day 1 and 2. It's up to you and your team. So, this is my team, ELA 2. We have Donovan, we have Kelly, we have Kayla, we have Devon, we have Smith, and we have McDonough. This may be group 1, and this is group 2. So on my calendar, I'm going to assign them lessons and then days to present. So today, you guys are mostly going to focus on your first week of school, but then tomorrow you're going to have group 1 maybe work on lessons for that chunk of lessons, and then group 2 for August 5th and 6th lessons. And then group 1 is going to work on this again. So that the first day of school, we're modeling August 3rd lessons and August 4th. And remember, these are going to be taught on this day. And then August 2nd lessons will be modeled. So you're a week in advance or ahead, but soon after you start modeling and presenting and working on lessons, you're going to get even further ahead. So that's the end of the first tutorial. Please tell me what you liked, what you wonder, and a good next step. Thank you very much for watching.